Hi you guys. So I'm coming in to do this video literally right after work, as soon as I walked into my house, because I want to do it, number one, while these thoughts and memories are fresh on my head. You guys know how I feel about capturing, certain things in my life, especially fresh things. So if you have read the title, then you can tell that this video, it's not going to be long, but it's going to be a brief video of me kind of chatting a little bit about my uncle. So I'm going to just give you guys just a little bit of history, background, whatever. Little history, little background, whatever. So you see the picture. I posted the picture also on Instagram. My uncle Shorty, that's not his real name. That's a nickname he had from when he was younger, in his younger days. I'm filming from my phone, you guys, because I just want to make this really quick. He is not my biological uncle. He married my aunt, and he is the father of most of my cousins, okay? From him, I have about 13 cousins, okay? So let's just put that into perspective. So my uncle Shorty, he passed away 2 days ago. He had complications from COVID. So he had COVID. He went into the hospital. He started to have trouble breathing, and they put him on a ventilator. Now he's 83, you guys. So my aunt dated older, because my aunt is not in her 80s. So I'm just giving you guys some background and perspective. He was 83. My aunt is way younger than in her 80s. But they got married. They gave me all my cousins, most of my cousins on my mom's side, and for as long as I can remember, I mean, from being a little girl, he was just such an awesome person, okay? My aunt never worked a day in her life, okay? Because that man provided for her and their family. To be honest with you, I don't know exactly what he did, but I do remember being about maybe 14 and remember going to his job. He used to work in Long Island City in New York, and he worked in like this big factory, and he was like the boss, little short guy telling everybody what to do. And they would build like all these sculptures and like art pieces for different places, for stores, for high-end stores. Like, if you go into like luxury department stores and you see like all these elaborate displays and designs, like Neiman Marcus, his company was the company, or one of the companies, that actually would build those displays and things like that. He would bring a lot of stuff to my aunt's house. Some of the things scared me. I don't like faces, like masks that have like, I don't know, like I like African masks. We actually collect African masks, but if the faces look too real, I don't like it. When I was a kid, I was traumatized because he had made, he's also a sculptor himself, two faces that one looked like my mom and one looked like my aunt. They're sisters, and they hung them on the wall in the living room, and they would terrify me. I was just like, what kind of creepy mess is this, right? And they would get such a kick out of me being terrified of their faces being sculpted and hanging on the wall. Like, as a kid, can you imagine? It's like the creepiest thing ever. But he was able to like make sculptures out of clay or whatever materials they use, plaster, clay, like, and then paint them, and they would look exactly like the person, right? So I always thought what he did was really, really cool. And since I was like a little girl, I remember him having that job. He always had the same job. He always got up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, I would spend the weekends at my cousin's house. So I basically lived there at some point. And he would always get up, rain, sleet, snow, sick, not sick, to go to work, to make sure that he had, the money to pay the bills. And so my aunt could not go to work, So that was the life that he afforded her. just a little inside family tea. They had a lot of kids. And I remember like my grandfather and my grandmother both telling my aunt, like, you need to get a job. Like, this man is basically killing himself. Y'all asking people in the family for money. And she's just like, I don't have to work. I don't have to work. My husband provides. But the poor man, let me tell you guys, he actually worked too hard, if you ask me. We're gonna make this video about that. We'll talk about that another time. But I have nothing but good things to say about him. As I remember him, all I can tell you is good things. I have spent the night, in their home in Brooklyn plenty of times. I remember getting a little older and starting to, be developed, and guys in Brooklyn on the street corners would be trying to talk to me. And my uncle, through marriage, he did not play that when it came to us girls. He will beat your butt, okay? He did not play that. He was very protective over his own children, as well as me, as well as my younger brother who passed away. He's just the type of person, like my mom is the same way. Just like good-hearted people. No matter what you do to them, you can beat them down, you could treat them like crap, you could, embarrass them. You can do anything negative to them, and they will be mad at you for the moment, and the next day they will forgive you. And that is the type of person that he is. And he always forgave people way too much, if you ask me. He was taken advantage of a lot, but that's not my business or my place. And it's something to be said about people like that can overlook other human beings' flaws and hurtfulness, and still they can be good to everyone. And that's what I remember of him. I do remember, you guys have heard me speak about this on my channel before, like when I was like right on the cusp of teenager and adulthood, and me and my mom wasn't really seeing eye to eye, I would go to my aunt's house, because at my aunt's house is where I found freedom, and I can kind of like do whatever I want. The grass is not always greener, you guys, and most of us, if you're like my age or even slightly younger, I'm sure you can attest to plenty of times where you may have thought the grass was greener and it wasn't. But we all have to go through our own life lessons and our own experiences. So although I thought the grass was greener at my aunt's house, it really was not. But he used to always make sure that I ate. It was a time when I used to go to my aunt's house when I was in college, and he was just so good. Now, I'm not even his kid. Meanwhile, he has mad children. And he would make sure that I had money, we call it car fare, to get either on a bus, to take a taxi, because I would come home late some nights because I was going to school and I was working. Sorry, you guys, I had to delete some stuff off my phone, a whole mess. Yeah, he was just so worried that like something was going to happen to me. So he stepped in, as a father figure when I was basically living with my aunt, because I didn't want to be home for various reasons. And I appreciate that, like I never forget all the people who were good people to me in my life as I was becoming an adult, or trying to figure out life, figure out what's my next move, because 18, 17, 18, 19, you're basically an adult, like your parents don't have to take care of you necessarily, you know what I mean? But I just appreciate, like I said, the people that were there. And I would have to say he was a lot more responsible than my aunt, because my aunt lived a carefree lifestyle, child. Carefree, okay? You hear me? Do y'all have family members that just be living a carefree lifestyle with no responsibilities, but they be living a carefree lifestyle? Yeah, so that was my aunt. But he was like the rock of the family. Like, who works all day, comes home 6 o'clock and still cooks a full meal? You know why? Because my aunt was chilling. She wasn't cooking. He would come home, and I just remember seeing this as a young adult, thinking like, what a good person, like. And he would make he was Puerto Rican, and he would make, so my cousins are mixed, right? And he would make a big pot. This is the only thing, child, I could not eat another chicken and rice and beans for a long time, because that's what I ate for years, every day, except on Fridays, because on Fridays was his day off. And I'm sorry, Fridays was his days to relax. He worked on Friday, y'all. Let me get it right. He worked on Fridays, but after work on Fridays was his time to relax. I remember as a kid, either teenager or teenager going into adulthood, when I would still go hang out with my cousins and stuff, and we were all like really close. Like I would travel to Brooklyn because I didn't live in Brooklyn anymore since like 8 really, but everything that I did was in Brooklyn, including going to school or my family and friends. So I was still always in Brooklyn, although I lived in Queens. But I remember coming down on the weekends, and he would be hanging out with his compadres in front of the laundromat. So there was a laundromat on a corner. I'm not gonna tell y'all exactly where it was, but in Brooklyn, under the train station. For all my Brooklyn heads, y'all know under the train. So I mean, that could be, what train was it? The M. It was either the M train or the J train. I know some of y'all are from Brooklyn, and I know some of y'all are from New York, but just because you're from New York, you may not know Brooklyn. But it was either under the M or the J. The train station was like right here. That was Broadway. And then it was Myrtle, like across the way. And then my aunt's, their apartment, because they live in an apartment with all those kids. Their apartment was like right on the corner. It was a huge apartment. It was like what you call those apartments? Railroad apartments, where it was just like massive, but like you had to walk through every room to get to the other rooms. I just always thought that was crazy as hell. Or to get to the other room, if you didn't want to walk through the rooms, you used to have to walk outside of your apartment and go around. These are all like my memories, But like he, on Friday nights, would definitely hang out with his friends, and he would be drinking, and just having a good time. And I would remember if I'm coming home late or whatever, me and my cousins would be, he would be like, where y'all going? Like he never missed a beat. Even if he was a little tipsy, hanging out with his buddies, when the girls, whomever, even my boy cousins, like he was just always on top of like, where y'all going, what are y'all doing? We didn't have cell phones at that time, so it was always like, make sure you call to check in at the payphone, whatever. Just like a really good person that did not have to, he didn't have to be, that's what I'm gonna say, he didn't have to be, because he went through a lot with my part of the family. And that's what I'm gonna say about that. But he remained absolutely loyal and loving and caring and supportive. And I remember when my younger brother died, he was so emotional, right? And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, we didn't grow up with him. He's our family by marriage, and my brother actually lived with my aunt for a small portion of his adult life as well. So we both, my brother and I, both lived with my aunt at different times. Child, we was trying to find ourselves, like we were trying to get away from our parents, but only because we knew that my aunt would let us do whatever we wanted to do. That was basically the main reason. But and him being there at my brother's funeral, and he actually got up and spoke. There were people in my family that didn't even speak, but he's my family, but not by blood. And he got up and he said, just the nicest things, and offered anything he could do. There was really nothing he could do for me, but just the fact that he offered, and he was just like such a sweet person, you guys. Like I said, I can't say anything bad about him. I really do hope, we kind of lost contact because I really don't fool with that aunt in my family. That's that aunt. But, I lost contact with him because I don't really fool with my aunt. But they've been together all those years, since I was 4 or 5 or something like that. And like I said, all my memories of him were just really, really good memories. He was just a really good family man. He cared about any and everybody. He would try to help any and everybody. Like he would take you in, on top of having all his own kids. He would still take you in. Child, that house was crazy. I had to get up out of there. But he was just that type of person. And I will never forget that. I will never forget his memory. Good old Uncle Shorty. That's what we called him. And yeah, I just wanted to share like just a little bit of who he was and his life, and reflect on the memories that I do have of him. You know, when I remember leaving my own house, like I didn't want to be with my mother, be in my mother's house, and I wasn't sure what the hell I was doing. I didn't have enough money at the time to live on my own, but I knew my aunt would take me in, and he would always say, you always have a place to stay here, like you don't never have to. Well, I had a boyfriend, child, but I couldn't stay with my boyfriend. I know I always have to check, make sure Chunky is not getting into things he shouldn't be getting into. But yeah, you guys, I'm not gonna make this super long, but I just wanted to kind of share that, you know, like he the last thing I think I said was he was always like, I don't care where you are in the world, I don't care what your situation is, you know, if you need a place to stay, like my doors are always open to you. You know, my uncle let me bring a damn pet into that house. You know, I always had a love for animals. I might have been 16 years old, 17 maybe, and I remember I was like, told my mom, I was like, I'm gonna go live with my aunt, because I knew that made her mad. And I literally would just get on a train from Queens, which was an extremely long ride, and get to her house, and then I would be so happy because it was like party time. Like all my cousins was there, all they did was have a good time. I mean, that's not the most healthy or normal environment for a young person who's trying to go to school and stuff like that. So like, needless to say, that situation didn't last long, but the days that I did go there and stayed there were fun till it wasn't. But I remember there was a guy on the block. Now, if you grew up in New York, you remember back in the days, people used to be selling puppies in boxes. Like they would be walking around the neighborhood, pit bull puppies, big mutts, whatever, be selling dogs for like $50, $100, $150, just like randomly. Like, oh, you want a puppy? Like, I don't know where they got these puppies from. Who cared, right? Because everybody wanted a puppy. So I remember me and my cousins, we had all kind of like chipped in to get this damn puppy. Now remember, there's a lot of them in this apartment, and we all chipped in and ended up buying this puppy from this guy from the neighborhood. And this was on a Friday. I remember it clearly. It was on a Friday, and my cousins and I, we bought, my aunt didn't care, but we brought the puppy upstairs, and I remember we was all just like playing with the puppy, figuring out. So we was just being young and playing with this puppy, having a good time, whatever. I remember it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. My uncle was tipsy. I remember him coming up the stairs, and I remember thinking to myself, oh shoot, he is not gonna be okay with us having this damn yappy dog, because all the dog was doing was yap, like Chunky, but Chunky's older. Yap, 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 yap. And it was like one of those small mutt mixed dogs. Yap, 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 right? I was like, he is, because he would, on Fridays after he finished drinking, he would come and take his shower, have himself a little bit to eat, and then he would go to sleep and watch telenovelas. I think that's like telenovelas. I think that was one of the shows he used to watch, you know, the Latin shows that used to come on Channel 45, I believe. You know, he's from Puerto Rico. That was his culture. Like, he wanted to watch his shows. So that was his routine, like basically every Friday. And I was like, oh my God, this dog is gonna get on his nerve. And my cousins was like, he don't care. Like, they were so used to getting their way. Like, they was just like, oh, he's not gonna care. And I remember thinking more logically, like, this is gonna be annoying for somebody that's just been working all week or whatever. And they did not give a shit, right? And then I just remember, because the kids, like, the rooms were in the back, right? So he had to walk all the way through the house to get to the back. And he got to the back, and he was like, what is this? And he had like a Puerto Rican accent, right? And then my cousins was like, oh, it's a puppy poppy. Call him Poppy. It's a puppy poppy. And then he was like, whose dog is this? Why is this dog here? So of course they said it was my dog, because technically I didn't live there. So they thought if they said it was my dog, that he wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, get that dog out of here, blah blah blah. So I'm like, dang it. So they're like, oh, it's Crystal's dog, right? So he was like, Crystal, is this your dog? So what I'm gonna say, no. And I was like, oh yeah, Uncle Shorty, is my dog, whatever. He was like, so when you leave, you taking this dog with you, right? So I had no other choice but to lie. But I didn't like to lie. And I was like, I'm gonna take it with me, right? He's like, well, you need to make that dog be quiet. I'm trying to relax, right? How was I supposed to make the dog be quiet? I didn't know how to make the dang dog be quiet. Anyway, he was very gracious because eventually I think he found out that it was not my dog and whatever. I think somebody in the neighborhood actually told him that we all had bought this dog, and he was like, Crystal, this is not your dog, is it? And I was like, no. And then he was like, okay, this dog has to go, because he was just very disruptive and peeing in the house, and none of us young kids was training this dog. We wasn't properly showing him how to go to the bathroom and had him on a schedule. That dog ran through that house, peeing on everything, scratching, biting everything. So, you know, and we cried. Like, my uncle got rid of the dog. We cried and cried and cried. I remember only one time when I had a little boyfriend before my husband now, and he was from Brooklyn, and my husband knows about him. But anyway, so I remember he had bought me a puppy. This is at a different time. He had bought me a puppy for my birthday, but I know I couldn't bring it home to my real house in Queens. So I was just like, oh, you know, bring it to my aunt's house. And I just figured I'd let my cousins keep it until, you know, I was able to kind of figure out what the hell I was going to do with this puppy. And that didn't work out because it was a pit bull puppy, and I think my uncle was just like, no, it's pit bull, but he's gonna kill us all in our sleep. And I remember being there hanging out with my boyfriend with the puppy, and he told me I had to get out. And I was like, what? He's like, oh, if you're gonna be here with that puppy, this is the only one thing I can kind of remember that was like negative. But it wasn't even negative, like, because he knew I used to spend the night at my boyfriend's house, so he knew I had somewhere to go. But I guess he was like, it was like a bad day or something, and he literally told me, like, you and that puppy have to get out my house, right? And I was just like, Uncle Shorty, no, where am I gonna go? The puppy's a puppy, I can't put him out in the street. He was like, I don't care, that dog needs to get out of my house. Y'all know what? Me and my boyfriend and my puppy slept in the hallway. My aunt didn't even try to help me, child. She didn't even try to help me. She didn't care. So we slept in the hallway for that night because my uncle told me that I couldn't have that dog in the house and I had to get out of the house. And my boyfriend lived maybe like 35 minutes away from my aunt, but we couldn't bring a dog to his house either. So he had thought that I was going to be able to keep the dog, but clearly I couldn't bring it to my house in Queens, couldn't keep the dog at my aunt's house in Brooklyn, and he couldn't have the dog. So we slept in the damn hallway trying to figure out what was going to be the next step for this dog, this puppy that he had bought for me. And I remember the next morning we were sleeping in the damn hallway, and I remember my uncle got up at 4 o'clock every morning to go to work, and he was like, hey. He wasn't tapping me, he was tapping my boyfriend. My boyfriend was 6'4", 6'3", something like that, and he's like tapping his boot. Of course, he's from Brooklyn, he had a pair of Tim's on, and he's like, "Girl, what you doing? What are you doing sleeping in my hallway?" And he was like, you know, my boyfriend was very respectful or whatever, and he was just like, oh, you know, we didn't have anywhere to go with the dog or whatever. And then my uncle was like, Crystal, why didn't you come and say something? Why are you sleeping in the hallway? And I was just like, you told me to get out. I told you I didn't have anywhere to go with the dog. I'm not gonna put the dog in the street, you know what I mean? And he was just like, oh, go inside, like, take a shower. Well, he told my boyfriend to leave, but I was able to go inside with the dog. And he was like, when I come home today, the dog better be gone, whatever. And I was just like, okay. So I don't even remember what happened, but I think my boyfriend ended up selling the dog to somebody else because I couldn't keep it, he couldn't keep it. It was just like a waste. But that's the only kind of time I can remember him just being like a little annoyed with me, you know. That was the only time. But that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for listening and reminiscing with me, sharing some moments and memories with my Uncle Shorty. He was really, really a good person, and I do hope that he is in a better place now, and, you know, there's no more suffering. And he did live a pretty long life. I think to live to be 80 something years old is absolutely a blessing, and I hope that he has enjoyed most of his life. You know, I only know him from like my earlier years, not so much in adulthood because I wasn't really around him like that, but definitely a good person, and I just wanted to kind of capture some things about him. So thank you guys for watching. I will see you in my next one.